You may not know this, but there actually is a wrong way to celebrate Dia de Muertos. So with our recent experiences in Michoacan and with Michoacan's growing popularity internationally and domestically for their Dia de Muertos celebrations, we want to share both our positive and our negative experiences so that you can take these tips and recommendations and have a good experience yourself.
In today's video, we're going to be covering how to do Dia de Muertos in Morelia, Patzcuaro, and Janitzio.
We already made a video that shows what the experience was like on a more positive note, but we saved the difficult conversation for this video where we'll tell you about the chaos that ensued at Janitzio in particular, and of course share our tips for how to avoid that.
So let's start with Morelia. We arrived to Morelia a week before the Dia de Muertos, and the festivities around the centro of Morelia started to rise. So
the decorations started going up. There were actually a lot of Halloween activities going on as well. We have a video on that if you want to check it out. But you don't have to get there a whole week in advance. I think a few days towards the end of October for Morelia is perfect to experience the decorations, the vibes, and all the beautiful tapetes that they've got around Plaza de Armas. And one particular event that we really enjoyed was a show at the Teatro Matamoros for Performing Arts. It was called Amidst, and this production was like musical, had puppetry, it had acrobatics, a live orchestra, and in addition to the 45-minute show, there was a walkthrough that felt like a museum of exhibits of all Dia de Muertos themed like art and setups. Like, it was just a really cool walkthrough experience. It was like a half hour. You can get there before or experience it after. It was about 400 pesos per person for the experience, and we really loved that show because it also told stories and legends from the Purépecha peoples from Michoacan and their beliefs surrounding Dia de Muertos. So throughout Mexico, the beliefs vary a little bit. So Dia de Muertos beliefs in Oaxaca might be a little bit different from Michoacan. So if you're looking to learn more about that traditional aspect, this performance explained it beautifully. It is 100% in Spanish, so just FYI.
That's why it's also important to be here a couple of days before, because the performance can sell out. We were able to buy the tickets while the film festival was going on.
And we bought the tickets in person by walking into the theater. I'm not sure what their sales are online. In terms of where to stay in Morelia, we stayed at this beautiful Airbnb luxurious apartment for about $30 a night, and after fees, it came up to closer to $40 a night, which is, I think, still a really good price for the super beautiful and modern apartment that we had. It was a one bedroom and an office with a lovely kitchen and a big living room, TV.
It was a beautiful lot. I would go back. It wasn't like that since the beginning. We actually stayed at another Airbnb that didn't end up working out because there was like 15 roosters living on the block.
So that was the second place we stayed at, because the first place had some noise issues because of the roosters across the street waking us up early.
But I would recommend staying near Centro so that you don't have to get Ubers or taxis or feel like you're walking at night. If you're near the Centro vicinity, then you can walk straight to Centro and all the activities.
And even at night, we felt comfortable walking home to that particular location. That first place that we mentioned we stayed at, we wouldn't have recommended walking home at night to that. Like literally, it's like in Chicago, from block to block can make a difference in terms of safety. So if you're interested, we can leave the link to that Airbnb in the description below. We don't get any commission for this. It's just us sharing something that we liked. So on Sunday, October 30th, we decided to go ahead and move on to Patzcuaro because we were planning to go to Janitzio. And the reason we decided to go October 30th and not November 1st is one of our main tips for you, and that's that traffic is going to be insane on November 1st. So our first recommendation to you is arrive to Patzcuaro the day before Dia de Muertos, October 31st, or even better, October 30th. We're really glad we arrived October 30th because there was already a whole festival set up and there are things to do in Patzcuaro as well, so you can enjoy Patzcuaro ahead of your experience in Janitzio, for example.
To get to Patzcuaro, we took the bus La Línea Autovías
for about 60 pesos per person.
For about 60 pesos per person, and it took about an hour to an hour and a half to get there. It was a smooth ride. We got there kind of close to at night. Patzcuaro is a small town, but you can get a taxi straight from the camiones to where you want to stay.
And so the hour and a half on Sunday, October 30th is key because it can take double that amount of time if you're heading from Morelia to Patzcuaro on November 1st. There are bus tickets for sale and routes heading from Morelia to Patzcuaro on November 1st and all, but the traffic is so bad from people from all over Michoacan heading to Patzcuaro on their own cars that just because the bus says it's an hour drive, it's not. If on those particular dates, it's going to take at least double. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, and the only reason we know that is because one of my family members came last year and she was waiting in traffic for over 3 hours. So she just decided to make a
turn
U-turn
around, yeah,
and come back. And everyone in Patzcuaro recommends you to do the same thing.
Either go super early in the morning, and even super early in the morning on November 1st, we're talking about hours in traffic. So you can avoid that by going at least a day or a couple days before, like we did. In terms of where to stay.
Oh, this is a big one. Where to stay in Patzcuaro because it's such a popular event.
And it's a small town or a small city.
It is a small city, but there's a good amount of hotels, but people book 6 months in advance. We booked about 3 weeks or 2 weeks before.
And we got super lucky. I called 17 hotels because online I was like, there's no way there's nothing available. So I started calling places and the rates were outrageous, like over 2,000 pesos a night. That's over $100 a night. And that's for us was like just outrageous because we budget for our travel. And so as the closer it gets to the date, even if you're booking out in advance, know that this city and these towns rely on the income from tourism from these dates because the rest of the year they're not getting much traffic, they're not getting many visitors. So the rates are much higher than they would be outside the year.
We got lucky that we called a hostel, La Casa del Sol, and they had availability. The thing with, we're gonna link it down here, but the thing with La Casa del Sol is that they only accept transfers from within a Mexican bank. They don't have like a credit card or anything like that.
Or you take money to OXXO, which in order to do that, you need an ID.
You need an INE to be able to send out a transfer.
ID. Yes.
So we got lucky because we have a Mexican bank account. And we were able to send out a transfer to keep that deposit for our room that night.
This man doesn't take PayPal. He barely even has a bank account. Like he just, for his own safety purposes because of the crime in Michoacan, we're guessing that he prefers to keep his finances under the radar.
Yeah.
So paying for a low-key hostel like that might be difficult if you don't have a Mexican ID or a Mexican bank account.
The hostel was great. We loved the place that we stayed. Jaime was a great host. The place is super clean, and you could oversee like a bunch of...
We could see Janitzio from where we were because we were on the second floor.
You could see Patzcuaro, like super nice, and it was just like a downhill walk to the main center of Patzcuaro, so we recommend it.
And
so we're definitely going to link it.
How much did we pay? We paid
1,500 pesos a night, which is still a high amount for the room that we got.
$75 a night, which is a lot more than we would pay normally anywhere else. And then we stayed a couple days after the Dia de Muertos dates, and then we paid 400 pesos for a night. So just to show you
huge difference.
Huge difference in because of the demand for those dates. So again, make sure that you're booking your stay months in advance.
What to do when you're in Patzcuaro for Dia de Muertos? There are a lot of celebrations that are similar to the ones happening here in Morelia, like a Catrina parade, a zombie parade.
They have a zombie parade too?
Yeah, they have
we must have missed that. I must have missed that.
They also had musical performances, a nice stage, and just a huge, the plaza becomes a huge market with so many things to do. People from all over the world are visiting for Dia de Muertos, Noche de Muertos, which just becomes so popular.
It's very safe during those dates. It's very exciting, lots going on. So it's worth making sure you get there at least by October 31st to enjoy Patzcuaro before you're planning to venture out to any of the other small towns in the area. Now, as you're walking around, we do recommend a stop into the Office of Tourism. The tourism office is located on the main plaza under the arches, and that's a great spot to start asking for like what's going on around here. If you want to know the schedule of events, they've got flyers and printouts for you. They can also point you to different smaller tour agencies that are running tours to the cemeteries. And we'll talk about our tips to the cemeteries in just a little bit. But honestly, we must have visited that tourism office like 3 or 4 times.
We just became friends that we were just
we like talking to
up.
them. They're super nice and they'll answer all your questions. Now, if you're the kind of person that likes to plan out where you're going to eat ahead of time, we have 3 recommendations for you out of the places that we enjoyed. Of course, there's a lot of street food, but there's a cafe that we really like, Cafe Sempatsuchil.
Oh, they had great coffee. They had
great bread, breakfast,
delicious bread. Oh my
and
God.
good Wi-Fi. So if you're looking for a place with internet, if you're looking for a more substantial meal, there's a restaurant across the street called Maria Cazuela's Buffet Restaurants, and they've got
so good too. The sopa tarasca there was amazing.
So good. You've got to try that while you're in Michoacan, by the way. So they've got over 18 different guisados, from like meats and veggie-based salads, and it's all for 220 pesos per person, which I think is super fair. And it was all delicious food. We really enjoyed it. And then this last recommendation, we didn't get to go there, but a local recommended it to Kevin. Do you remember this one?
Yes, Carnitas Las Plazas.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't get to go during that time, but if you don't get to go, check it out for us and let us know how good it is.
Yeah.
And if not, eat street food, because there's so much good street food in Patzcuaro. Tacos, burgers, remember that? Oof. Okay, we won't go on, otherwise we're going to get hungry.
One more tip before we move on from Patzcuaro. Patzcuaro, I was surprised to see how many face painting stations there were. We overheard from other people that this year was like the most popular it's ever been. The movie Coco has been credited with like the increased popularity, at least globally, with like the fascination with the face painting. And the locals, they're all about it. They'll paint your face for 80 to 100 pesos. And just know that on November 1st, in the middle of the day to the afternoon, they're gonna be packed with hours-long lines, even though there's tons of them. Yeah. So we got our makeup done, I think around noon, and we got lucky that we only had to wait about an hour. So either go early in the morning, and this is right by the Mercado de Artesanías and the main plaza in Patzcuaro, or just in case you're planning to get your face paint. Important part of the celebration.
Let's talk about booking a tour to Janitzio or the surrounding towns, which is super important to make sure that you have a great experience for Día and Noche de Muertos.
Yeah, the locals really care about visitors having a good experience, and they're happy to share their traditions and customs with outsiders. They're very kind-hearted people. You just want to be aware that with the amount of people that are arriving to these small towns, it can get very chaotic, and that's something that we're going to talk about a little later in this video. Our next tip for you is book the tour. We arrived with the intention of doing everything ourselves, and it was pretty straightforward. Google Maps tells you where the cemeteries are. You can go to the
It's part of the adventure, right? Yeah. We like to be adventurous.
We like to do things on our own.
But in this situation, it's a very specific situation that I think we want to book a tour so that you don't...
We recommend booking the tour because, especially if it's your first time. Now, if you're experienced, then by all means, go ahead and do it on your own. But the reason we recommend the tour as a first timer is because there's so much going on. There's so much traffic. Primarily, it's the traffic issue. The amount of people, not just cars, but foot traffic and the boat traffic at the docks to get to the island. It's craziness. So we were told that the lines to get to the dock and onto a boat to get to the island were
we're talking about Janitzio, by the way.
Yeah, to get to the island of Janitzio. Hours-long lines to get on a boat, and the tours, they have partnerships with certain boat drivers already, so they will take you straight to your boat. They will make sure that everything is streamlined. It's actually easier for locals if you take the tour, because that way the traffic is more streamlined and you have less people in more cars doing their own thing.
Just think about it this way. You're going to an island that has, I think, like 5,000 people who live in it.
No more than 5,000 people,
yeah?
I think.
And 500,000 people visit for Noche de Muertos. Just imagine an island with 500,000 people visiting on and on. So these tours, they organize with the people from Janitzio to make sure that the night is going to go smoothly.
As smooth as possible.
Yeah.
We booked a tour with a local family-owned business called Ruta de las Animas. We'll include their information in the description below as well. They were great. This is a local family. They give us tons of history. They included coach buses to get to the dock, which is significant distance from the center of Patzcuaro. And then they had, like I said, their boat already lined up at the dock waiting for us. We got to the island. You know, once we got to the island, things were very crazy and chaotic, but they did a great job of trying to keep us all together. I think it was about 90 of us. They split us up into 2 groups, and it was lots of fun. They gave us mezcal. They were great people. Felt great knowing that I'm being guided by a local and that I'm not, you know, stepping somewhere I'm not supposed to be stepping. And they charged about 900 pesos per person. It was the island of Janitzio and the smaller town of Arocutin. It was just so much happened that night.
They came with mezcal.
Another thing to note and remember is that the main festivities are on the evening of November 1st. We were told that lots of people have made the mistake of arriving on November 2nd and trying to book a tour to the island, and there are no tours to the island on November 2nd. There's really not much going on the night of November 2nd. The most spiritual aspect of Noche de Muertos is from November 1st into dawn of November 2nd, with the exception being the night of October 31st into November 1st is de los angelitos, the soul of children who have passed. But again, the main night is November 1st. So just keep that in mind as you're planning your dates. November 1st in the evening is the night that's going to be your main night.
That's why it's also good to arrive earlier, because they also do tours where communities actually celebrate the 31st going into the 1st for La Noche de los Niños Inocentes. Maybe because of the language, Día de Muertos, you think it's during the day, but it's Noche de Muertos.
Yes, that's in Michoacan and in Patzcuaro has been where I've heard that the most. They call it Noche de Muertos more than they call it Día de Muertos.
To the point where they almost correct you.
Yeah.
Noche de Muertos.
Almost, not quite. I think it was just that show that was super cute and funny. So let's talk about the island of Janitzio and why it's gotten so popular over time. I think it still has something to do with the film Coco, because that cemetery and the island is the one that was used to inspire the cemetery in the film. And so, it was a combination of different towns in Michoacan, but that one has become more popular in recent years. So everyone's got in their mind that that's where they want to go.
Including us. I mean, we were there, right?
we did the same thing, understandably.
And this was the first time that it was open after 2 years from COVID, so it was even more people for it. But
and the locals did express how tough the last 2 years were for them financially because of the lack of income from tourism. So I'm not saying like tourism is bad. I'll get to that. I'll get to that in a minute. But what I'm getting at is that while it was a beautiful cemetery, it's not the only one. There are tons of other cemeteries in surrounding towns in this area that you can visit and maybe even have a more positive experience where you're not dealing with just intense crowds full of people who are misbehaving.
It's because I think that the idea of going to Janitzio at night, this is the only time that there's tours that boats go at night to Janitzio. It feels beautiful. It does feel beautiful.
It is. But then you have a ton of, like, the number of people that are just, it takes away from the spirituality and takes away from the peace. And
really, we're taking away from the communities who are celebrating with.
I can't tell you how. Okay, sorry, we're getting ahead of ourselves. But before we really get into the chaos and the drama, we want to mention a few other alternatives for small towns and cemeteries that you can go to that are just as beautiful and that you might even enjoy a little bit more. The first one is Tzintzuntzan, which is almost as popular as Janitzio.
I would say it's just as popular.
It's probably just as popular. We've heard from people who went this year that it was also very chaotic. So if you really want to go to Tzintzuntzan, I would recommend going the night of October 31st for La Noche de los Santos Inocentes, or for the souls of children, because they do a slightly different and special ceremony that the other towns don't do. So I would recommend going to Tzintzuntzan. That's actually what we would do if we were to go back again next year. But so for the evening of November 1st, then when you're booking the tour, I would look for a tour that goes somewhere outside of Janitzio. Or if you're going to a small town, maybe you don't even need the tour. I think the tour is really just kind of key if you're going to the island because of the craziness. But if you're wanting to go somewhere else, like Arocutin, I would recommend.
Was gorgeous.
We went to Arocutin with our tour, and it was amazing. It was a lot less people. It was much more calm. That's where I could really sit down and reflect on what everything was that I was looking at, and I was able to appreciate it more without being frustrated by people around me. Another alternative is the town of Iguazio, which is also known for having just beautiful ceremonies. And just because it's a name that not many people know, less people, less crowds.
And there's a bunch of other town cemeteries that offer people that welcome people to come and visit, you know. So just ask. The tourism office is a great place to ask. Everybody warned us. Even our tour guide warned us about Janitzio. But again, you go with that tourist mentality and you want to see it. So let's just get to the juice.
All right. Let's get to the juicy part. Do you want to start?
So we get to Janitzio, and like we said, it's gorgeous. You feel like you're walking into the movie Coco.
It's magical.
And then there's one cemetery for the entire island, and we get there and the line is long.
We're on the island, we're climbing up, but there's a really long line to just really move anywhere. So when you come, if you do come, you want to come with lots of patience, lots of understanding. Just know that this isn't one of those experiences that you're just going to rush into and see, okay, cool, wow, then leave. You want to be ready to take it slow and just be with an open mind. So we're going to wait here, wait our turn, and we'll get there when we get there.
Around 7, 8 o'clock, the velaciones start, which is the ceremonies for the cemeteries. So right now, there's just a ton of people trying to get in. It's like 7:30, and they want to make sure that you're in there for the beginning of the ceremony. So it's hectic, but like Jenny said, just
take it easy.
Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. The community of Janitzio established that there was going to be an entrance and an exit for people to come in and see the cemetery.
It was supposed to be like a circuit, a specific route to help streamline everything.
The traffic, yeah, but
it didn't turn out that way, and we're not sure why. People were getting really upset because there was, just imagine, make a door for me like this. Make a door for me like this. We have very little footage because it was just crazy. There was tons of people wanting to come out, tons of people wanting to go in, and then you have locals trying to enter with their ofrendas to like come in and set them up in the cemetery, and the people trying to get out just would not budge and let the people in. The people trying to get in wouldn't budge to let the people out, and it got so bad that people started pushing, fighting, arguing, stepping on graves.
You're gonna get stuck. You're starting to fight down there. Come around.
I want to cry, but not for the reasons that you'd think. People's behavior has been really disappointing, and I'm like rubbing my shin because as people were pushing to get into the cemetery, I hit my shin on some cement, so I'm bleeding a little. It hurts, but whatever, that'll heal. But unfortunately, I just saw people shouting, pushing, getting angry about not being able to get in and out, and just the amount of disrespect that I saw is heartbreaking. But I just needed to sit down for a second and reflect about what the heck just happened, because that is not okay. This is something to respect, and people just lose it when there are huge crowds, and that to me is just heartbreaking.
It got to a point where there were so many people trying to get in and they weren't letting the people out that people started throwing themselves onto people. Like there was this couple that just threw ourselves onto us. Threw themselves onto us, and like I had to push them, and in that moment it pushed Jenny, and Jenny tripped, and then her leg was like bleeding, and people were fighting, and then the people who are celebrating their relatives are just watching they're
just watching this
crying and this is like a ceremony. It's not Disney where you go and see a performance of Coco. This is the beliefs of people, the traditions where people
are there to reunite with their loved ones. So it was just, I felt so awful that I was even there in that moment. I just feel so bad for the people who are just here trying to honor and remember their loved ones. Like, they don't deserve this. I feel like I'm part of the problem just by being here. I wish that maybe there was a little bit more organization, and that's me talking from a privilege point, right? Because all I did was pay a ticket on a tour and just showed up here. But if people are going to behave this way, then none of us deserve to be here.
Unfortunately, because it just felt like we were also part of the problem. Like, you're walking to the cemetery and you're stepping on people's graves. It's at night, you can't see. There's no room for you to be walking around. You're literally stepping on people's graves, and when you see it and you feel it, and then you think, if this was my family member and I was walking over my family member's grave, like, the level of disrespect is just so bad. And I can't say that I didn't walk on some. It's just so crowded.
There are times where we look down, we're like, oh, damn it. Like, oh, and then you have people who didn't care at all, and it was just so frustrating. And it was beautiful. I was trying to enjoy it, but yeah, it was crazy. It was chaotic. We spent some time talking to a woman who was there dándole velación a su papá. And so we talked to her for a little bit. We like kind of apologized for being part of the problem, but she also reminded us that like they're more than happy to receive tourists. It just needs to be maybe some control. And I don't think they expected this volume of people. I think they've had large volumes of people before, but we wondered, well, why didn't they put a limit on, you know, the number of tickets or tours that they sold to the island? I don't think they expected this chaotic, and we still asked her, we're like, has this happened before? She's like, well, yeah, it has happened before, but also we didn't have anyone visit in the last 2 years, and financially it was really tough. So I can't speak on what I think they should do. I can only think about what we can do as tourists and visitors and what kind of tips and recommendations we can share with you all. So here goes our tip and recommendation for if you really, really want to visit Janitzio. I would say
don't go.
I would say don't go on the night of November 1st. You can have a better experience in another small nearby town. If you really want to go to Janitzio, go the next day. Go on November 2nd. Go in the morning, midday. Enjoy the day. We did that, and we loved it. We had a beautiful day on the island. We left with
such a sour taste in our mouth on the night of Noche de Muertos that we're like, we have to go back.
Go back and do it over.
And it was beautiful, right?
The cemetery was open, and it was like there was like no one there. There was a few people there, but it was much more comfortable. So we still got to see the cemetery. Yeah. We still got to explore the island. And we got to do that during the day on November 2nd. And that's what we would recommend for others as well. So that's it for the drama and those things. Here are our final tips and reminders for things to keep in mind when visiting Patzcuaro, Janitzio, or any of the cemeteries. Wear comfortable shoes. You're going to be on your feet for a long time.
Hours.
Dress warmly. The temperatures tend to dip to like the low 50s or mid 40s at night.
It's an island
and
surrounded
it's windy.
by water, lake water.
Even if you're not going to island, if you're going to the surrounding towns, it still gets quite chilly because this is a high altitude region. And my last tip is don't show up to the cemeteries under the influence. I know that a lot of people go for the partying, especially a lot of Mexicans. Fine, like, you know, do what you want, but save the partying for maybe after the cemetery, I would say, because I think that I suspect that a lot of the arguments happen from people who were just like hot-headed or hot-blooded in the moment, and some of that can be prevented.
To be safe for later. I mean, the night of Noche de Muertos ends at like 6 in the morning when the sun comes out.
Oh my gosh, one more thing we almost forgot to mention. The boats to Janitzio, to and from Janitzio, outside of November 1st, the last boat returns to Patzcuaro at 6 p.m. So we thought, October 31st, we thought we were going to go to the island around 5 and then come back at night. That's not going to happen. Only on the night of November 1st, they have it going out around like 24 hours. But outside of November 1st, the rest of the year, the last boat from Janitzio to Patzcuaro comes back at 6 p.m. So just take note when you're planning. I think November 2nd, they do a little bit after 6, like around 7 or 8. They extend it a little bit because there's still a lot of people visiting. But just make sure that you have made that note as you're planning. And that's it. That's all I have. Do you have any final tips and reminders?
That is it.
Okay.
We just wanted to make sure that we put this video out there because we want to make sure that people know and understand
what they're getting themselves into and
what goes behind the scenes. And we want to be straightforward with y'all, and we also want to be respectful to the communities of Michoacan. In case you ever want to visit, make sure you take these tips and brands.
Thanks so much for watching. If this video was helpful to you, be sure to give it that thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already for more travel tips and adventures with us. Don't forget to leave a comment. We love to hear from you. And of course, se cuidan, se bañan y nos vemos hasta la próxima. Chao.